We're about to get real nerdy up in this bitch. So take a seat, students. We actually have a guest speaker today, Professor W. Hold on now. So let's give him a round of applause. He's coming now. Say thank you and welcome. Yes. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Please hold the applause. Yes, my name is Professor W. I have a PhD in Conjuration Sorcery, and I'm here today at Wommywanga's behest to explain this extremely complicated yet fun and fulfilling build to all of you. And good news, everyone.
Good news, everyone.
The famous Conjuration Sort conjecture has finally been solved. First, we have to think about what we all think about when we think about conjurations. Naturally, we look at each skill in that part of the tree and we don't see anything too interesting until we get to a couple very specific lines. Ice Blade's cooldown is reduced by 0.5 seconds each time it hits a vulnerable enemy, and then 20% of Ice Blade's cooldown is applied to your other skills. That sounds awesome. And alongside the Conjuration Mastery passive, we could get a ton of multiplicative damage if we start spamming all the conjurations a lot. And what other skills have cooldowns that we would want to spam to great effect that synergize with conjurations in the sort tree? And are there any skills that also help out with reducing cooldowns so we can double down on this mechanic? Let's answer these two questions in order. Every defensive skill, every ultimate skill, and lightning spear have cooldowns and strong effects. Okay, but which ones are best for this idea is a little difficult, so we'll come back to that. Let's answer the other questions. Are there any skills that also help out with reducing cooldowns? Sure, there's two, Arc Lash and Deep Freeze. Deep Freeze is both a powerful skill with a cooldown and helps reduce cooldowns, so that's a must-have. And if we want all of our damage scaling to be related to conjuration skills, we'll put Hydra, Ice Blades, and Lightning Spear on our hotbar. Alongside Deep Freeze, we have our first 4 skills of our build. Right, so we just have to pick 2 more skills, the most beneficial ones, and if Teleport is arguably a must-have skill for the class, we have 5 skills now. So what's left? Are you thinking we do a basic attacking setup, spamming Arc Lash? Well, hold on now. Before we go any further, we have to think about which enchantments we can use, ones that benefit our conjuration skills as much as possible. Let's quickly sift through the whole list together. Remember, anything related to conjuration skills or making enemies vulnerable, so that Ice Blade's passive that reduces cooldowns will always be working. The question we'll ask as we look at these is, does this effect have anything to do with the 2 previously mentioned ideas? And here we go. Nope. Sorta, because cooldowns, but not really. Nope. Because we ain't on that bitch shit, know what I'm saying? Here we are. Conjuration skills have a chance to unleash Frost Nova when hitting enemies. Hell yes. That sounds dope. And does the Frost Nova activated from the enchantment gain the passives behind Frost Nova if we put points into them? Yes, they do. Meaning this both has something to do with conjuration skills and solves a vulnerability application problem in one fell swoop. Let's continue on. Nope. For every 40 seconds in cooldowns you spend, you spawn an Ice Blades on a random enemy. This sounds amazing. Since Frost Nova is activated from its enchantment, adopt its related skill tree passives, we can assume that Ice Blades does as well. Well, that's a must-have. Even more Ice Blades than before. Let's look at the other enchantments before we decide though. Nope, we can only have so many Hydras up at once, and it doesn't have a cooldown like the other 2 conjuration skills, so we don't need help maintaining the maximum amount of Hydras. Nope, we won't be spawning any crackling energy. Nope, and nope. So there are only 2 natural picks for what we're looking for. That's an easy choice then. So we're gonna take the Frost Nova and the Ice Blades enchantments. Now let's think. With our current 5 skills and both enchantments picked out, let's look at the skills again, but with a different lens this time. Which skills have cooldowns with powerful effects that can be spammed to great effect, which in turn will help us spawn more Ice Blades? And are there any that will give us more benefit than Arc Lash? There is exactly one skill that does meet all those criteria, Frost Nova. And this also helps guarantee the vulnerability status on enemies rather than getting unlucky sometimes, which can happen while we wait for the Frost Nova enchantment's lucky hit chance to activate. But wait, what's about to be explained won't have a logical order to it. It's just a piece of information you just kind of have to know in order to know, you know? And that is the Frost Nova that comes from the enchantment counts towards the cooldown reference in the Ice Blades enchantment, meaning every lucky hit activation is basically going to give us half a cast of an Ice Blades. Now, another piece of information you just kind of have to know is this. The Frost Nova cooldown matters in this case. So if you get cooldown reduction, you'll be spending less cooldown, but on the flip side, Frost Nova has an aspect that increases its cooldown and also gives it another charge to use. We'll talk about the aspects all together later, but that fact was related to our little tangent here, and it's very important, so I wanted to skim over it. One last thing I wanted to skim over was the Enchantment Master Legendary Paragon node. This actually turns the Frost Nova's lucky hit chance to 36%, and it also turns the 40 seconds required to activate an Ice Blades from the Ice Blades enchantment down to 33 seconds. That's in a very important Paragon node that we'll be talking about later as well, but I wanted to touch on it quickly right now. Now let's get back to our skills. Hydra, Ice Blades, Lightning Spear, Deep Freeze, Teleport, and last but not least, Frost Nova. Now that we have our skills, it's time to fully flesh out the skill tree. From top to bottom, we won't be using any core or basic skills, but we have to put points up here to go lower in the tree, and the only points that really help us out are the potent warding passive. Let's just put 3 points in Arc Glass just because, and 3 in potent warding, and now we can pick up some defensive skills. 1 point in Teleport, 1 point in Frost Nova, and it's 2 passives, 3 points in Glass Cannon for that damage baby, and 2 points in the Elemental Attunement passive because it helps us reset the cooldown on our Frost Nova and Teleport, meaning more cooldowns being spent, which means more Ice Blades from our enchantment. 5 points in each conjuration, and we'll take 2 passives behind Hydra, burning damage over crit chance, for a reason we'll touch on in the aspects section of this lesson, and of course the 2 passives we first talked about behind Ice Blades, but no passives behind Lightning Spear because we don't benefit as much as you think from these. We'll have to go further down the skill tree to explain. 3 points in Precision Magic because Lucky Hit Chance is a must-have stat for our Frost Nova enchantment. 3 points in Conjuration Mastery because we'll have more conjurations active than we know what to do with, hopefully. And finally 2 points in the Protection passive, which will have 100% uptime because we'll be spamming a whole lot of cooldown skills, and no points in the Mana Shield passive. Why? Well, because we'll be spending almost no mana at all. Just check out our skill bar again. Only Hydra costs mana, and we won't even be casting it that often. Moving on. We'll grab 3 points in the Devouring Blaze passive because our Hydras will be burning everything, so we'll be able to make use of this damage multiplier. Moving on, we'll grab Deep Freeze and its 2 passives because, of course, that cooldown reset affects almost every other skill on our skill bar, and we'll be able to use it defensively whenever we'd like because the immunity it provides allows us to cast it even when we're crowd controlled or in a vulnerable position. Same idea, why Teleport is a must-have. Or we can use it offensively because even though it's active for a duration, we can activate it again mid-cast to cancel it while still receiving all the benefits from activating a long cooldown for our Ice Blades enchantment, and resetting all of our other skills when we use it at the tail end of a skill rotation of some sort. Next, we'll grab 3 points in the Hoarfrost passive because everything will be frozen all the time because of Frost Nova enchantment, and Deep Freeze's crowd control effects. Then we'll grab 3 points in the Coursing Currents passive because Lightning Spear will be hitting a lot of enemies a lot of times, giving us a ton of global critical hit chance and not just a lightning skill critical hit chance when we read the wording very carefully. Finally, we have the key passives, and the only one that makes any sense at all will be the Shatter passive. If we want to be tankier, you could take off 4 points from the Devouring Blaze area and put 3 into the Electrocution passive and 1 into the Protection passive. But I haven't felt the need for this change even at high level Nightmare dungeons, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. Okay. So to recap, we use Hydra, Ice Blades, and Lightning Spear because they're all conjuration skills, and well, that's the build. We use Deep Freeze for its cooldown related utility, Teleport because it's amazing, and Frost Nova because we want a more proactive approach to applying freeze and vulnerability, as well as spending cooldown to activate our Ice Blades enchantment. And then we pick passives that are related to cooldown, damage, and defensiveness while keeping conjurations in mind. Pretty straightforward, to be honest, so let's try and keep that straightforwardness when we talk about our aspects and items. Let's start with stats that we want. Levels to our conjuration skills, critical hit chance, lucky hit chance, cooldown reduction, and intelligence. In the build guide will be all of the best in slot stats for this build if you scroll down on the gear page, so I won't go over everything, but generally the 5 aforementioned stats are the ones you'll want as much of as possible. Now let's move on to the aspects and unique items. Unique items aren't necessary for this build, but they make it a whole lot more fun. I like to use Isu's Ferocity on boots for movement and crits, Frostburn for gloves, and Ice Heart Brace for the juicy Frost Nova spam, as well as damage and freeze duration. And because we don't need to roll plus to levels of skills found on boots, gloves, or legs, these slots are freed up for us so we can have a bit of fun with it. Also, the Frost Nova sound effects that come from the Shatter passive and Ice Heart Brace, as well as your own Frost Nova, is incredibly satisfying. It's not important to the actual gameplay, but it's a bonus nonetheless. Speaking of fun, I love Zafal's Corrupted Signet, like everybody else, I'm sure, and this will make our Hydras really shine. And combined with the AoE clearing of the Shatter Key passive, the biggest weakness of Conjurations, their raw area of effect, is entirely solved. Aspects time. The Frost Nova aspect we mentioned earlier is back. We'll want this with its worst roll possible, which is actually its best roll possible for us at 40%. And if you're thinking about this on the amulet for a 50% bonus to that roll, it does the opposite and halves it down to 20%, thus giving Frost Nova a shorter cooldown, thus making us spend less cooldown from the enchantment when we cast it ourselves. So just keep it on the helmet. Aspect of Disobedience is a must-have for Sorks, and we put that on our chest piece. If you want to make this build work without uniques, replace Frostburn with Aspect of Fortune, Ice Heart Brace with Ever Living Aspect, and Isu's Heirloom with Exploiter's Aspect. For damage or whatever movement aspect fits your playstyle. On our Ami, we want as much damage as possible, so we take Conceited Aspect on it. Battlecasters is absolutely insane for this build. It's the best aspect by far, giving us 3 levels to each of our conjuration skills, which amounts to about 20% base damage to scale with. Definitely my favorite aspect in the entire game, to be honest. It's just really cool, unique, and efficient. And then we take Hydra's aspect so we can have 2 up at a time, and the Storm Soul aspect for more damage. See? Straightforward. Sadly, there's no Ice Blades aspect at the time of recording this. Hopefully there will be one in the future, because that would put this build through the fucking stratosphere. And about the Lightning Spear aspect, you might be wondering. After a lot of testing was conducted by a dedicated wrinkle-brained team of Twitch viewers and myself, we determined that aspect to be nice in thought, but dog shit in practice. Don't even bother. And again, all of the best in slot stats will be in order of importance on the build guide, which can be found in the description below. On to vampiric powers. Coven's Fangs as a natural pick, Accursed Touch is going to help us out with clearing mobs more quickly, Domination reduces our ultimate's cooldown, amazing. Prey on the Weak will guarantee beyond a shadow of a doubt that everything will be vulnerable forever when used in conjunction with Accursed Touch. And Domination for the last is going to boost up our damage some more, and also help clear packs easy breezy. But we're not quite done with explaining everything yet, so stick around to the end of the lesson, or I can guarantee you will miss something very important. But first, let's take a quick break to make sure we're all hydrated, stand up for a moment, stretch our legs. We just took in so much information that even smooth brains just got their first wrinkle. Okay. We've almost solved the build together, step by step. Before we explain the playstyle and skill rotation, we'll touch on the Paragon board for just a moment. I won't go into detail explaining every single choice made, just know it's efficient and effective as hell. Our legendary nodes are all multipliers to the effectiveness of the build or the damage itself. The glyphs all have extremely high rates of damage, increase per stat point node, and have amazing bonus effects. In total, we have 3 S tier legendary nodes, 3 S tier glyphs, and 2 A tier glyphs, in my opinion. Once you check it out for yourself, you're gonna cream. You're gonna want to make this build as soon as possible so you can feel the power in your own hands. Onto the playstyle and skill rotation. Shout out to Bless in Twitch chat for teaching me about how to use Hydra to solve another core problem for conjurations, and all summons in the game, to be honest. The AI targeting. In Worlds Tier 3 and 4, champion mobs are a real problem for these builds, but for Conjuration Sorcerer, the solution is to cast Hydra with those mobs centered on the cast, because when Hydra is first summoned, all of the heads shoot inward, so it sort of plays like an artillery strike of some sort. Next up, I like to almost never use teleport because I want the passive elemental attunements effect to target Frost Nova specifically, and because Deep Freeze is not considered a defensive skill, we can control the cooldown reset to a large extent, which in turn will give us more Ice Blades. Hell yeah. Lastly, the skill rotation for your average boss, pretty straightforward. Cast in order, Ice Blades, Lightning Spear, Hydra, Hydra again, Frost Nova again, Deep Freeze, deep freeze again to cancel out the rest of the duration, and since all of our cooldowns are reset again now, but only one charge of the Frost Nova gets reset if you're wondering about that. Ice Blades, Lightning Spear, Frost Nova, Hydra, then Hydra again to reset their durations, and from this point on, you'll see just how quickly your cooldowns get reset, how many conjurations you have active at a time, the crazy damage they all do, and how quickly bosses get staggered from all of the Frost Novas happening. Just mwah. I do feel obliged to tell you of the second version of Conjuration Sorcerer. Don't worry now, it's very simple, everything remains the same. However, take 4 points from Lightning Spear and put those into Arc Clash and its 2 passives. Second, swap out the Domination and prey on the weak vampiric powers for Moonrise and Ravenous. Lastly, use Arc Lash on your hotbar instead of Frost Nova. I'll say this though, transforms the build into a basic attack build that utilizes conjurations rather than being a pure conjuration build. Personally, I would never touch this version, even though it's about 25 to 40% more single target DPS reliably when min-maxed. And well, that's because I'm a purist and a role player, to be honest. Oh, you hear that bell? That's the end of the lesson. If you've made it this far without falling asleep, you get a gold star. Great fucking job. I was giving that lesson and I almost fell asleep. Anyways, let's pass things back to Wommy and I'm gonna get out of here. This has been Professor W. I hope to see you all again in the future. Oh, and like and subscribe to this Wommy guy. He's pretty all right. All right. Thank you. Yes. Thank you so much, Professor W. I appreciate him. He's wonderful. What a wonderful man. Alrighty. I hope you learned something and had a little bit of fun in the meantime. If any of the conjuration skills ever get better aspects, this build will instantly turn into a meta build, so watch out for that. In the meantime, it's probably the most fun, the most unique, and the most complicated build, all at the same time, while being A tier in terms of strength. That's all the time we have for today, you wrinkly brained baboons. Thank you, stay safe.